Welcome to the Five on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm here at American Airlines Arena with Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. Of course, I'm at 5 Reasons Sports. And Ethan J. Skolnick. The Miami Heat have just beaten the Philadelphia 76ers 117-116 to go to 24-8 on the season. Before we get to today's episode, I want to tell you about one of the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that, of course, is Dutch Valley Farms. What's Dutch Valley Farms? For starters, they're not your average cannabis grow farm. They've got deep roots in the 305, and this hometown group of doctors, CPAs, and Silicon Valley professionals have taken their talents from the 305 to the 503 to make you the finest flower out there. How does Miami find its way all the way out in Oregon? Simple, a team with a shared belief in cannabis research and erasing the stigma behind the bud. Today, the Dutch Valley Farms crew is bringing together old school growing practices with new school tech to deliver a consistently clean, high quality experience that you can feel good about. The proof is in the plant. You want more information? Visit DutchVF.com. That's DutchVF.com, or follow on Instagram at Dutch Valley Farms. And now, today's episode.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, aka Alf954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back here with Alex Toledo. We're in a back room at the Media Center here at American Airlines Arena after one of the more thrilling back-to-backs that I've covered in a long time. I almost forgot about the Indiana game the night before. We didn't pod after it. Make sure you check out our pod with Meyers Leonard and L. Leonard, which came out the previous day. I think you'll enjoy that. But the Pacer game was incredible. We haven't even really touched on it, and we're not going to really do that tonight. We'll do a context pod sometime before the end of the weekend and try to put everything into perspective on where this team is with 50 games left in the season. They've got 50 games left. They're 24-8, and Alex, right now as we speak, they are second by themselves in the Eastern Conference with wins against the Bucks, Sixers twice, Toronto, and Indiana. Only team they've lost to and haven't beaten of that group is Boston. Faced them once on the road, haven't gotten them here. Which
also on a second night of a back-to-back.
Also on a second night of a back-to-back. Those losses, all on the road. Yep. All those other losses. But let's just get to tonight. And we're going to do this as rapid fire as we can. But the first thing that I want to touch on tonight as we go through, and there's so many things we can get to. I'm looking at the box score, Alex, and literally these two teams played the exact same game. It was incredible. Like, the shooting percentages, similar. The rebounds, similar. The fouls, similar. The assists, similar. The free throw attempts, the same, 29. But the first thing that I kind of wanted to get to tonight is the other guys for the Heat. Because we've had so much conversation about Jimmy and Bam. And both of them made huge plays when it mattered. And in some cases, didn't make the right play when it mattered, or Jimmy missed some free throws. But tonight, Jimmy and Bam were 12 of 35 from the field. They shot roughly, what is that, 34%. And the Heat won anyway, because they got 6 for 6 from Duncan Robinson before he kind of got taken out of the mix. They got 35 minutes out of Goran Dragic, 19 points, 7 of 16 from the field. Goran came in with 4 minutes left in the third quarter and did not come out at his age on the second night of a back-to-back after he made the game winner the previous night.
I thought that was really interesting because I thought after Duncan got that fifth foul early on, was that the second quarter that he got that? Mm-hmm. I thought Spo was going to bring him out in the last minute or two, and he never took Goran out of the game. And we've seen Spo, go with the guy who he thinks is performing well that night in the past, but like you said, playing him from the end of the third quarter through overtime, it's kind of a lot on his body, but got to give credit for Spo trusting him, even though there was a size advantage there, even though the Sixers had Trey Burke out there. It was very telling of Spo to trust Goran in that way versus that team.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, so let's get to this. We're going to do, instead of doing 5 things tonight, we're going to do 10, and we're going to do them quickly. Tyler Herro did it again. Joel Embiid trapped, thought he was going to get fouled. I put some video up on 5 Reasons Sports. Brett Brown didn't seem real happy with that decision. Joel Embiid didn't seem real happy with Brett Brown questioning the decision. Gets stripped. Tyler Herro, in transition, step back 3. Okay.
Unbelievable.
Now, and I'm going to give one anecdote, and then I want to get to your thoughts on Tyler. I just gave this anecdote out on Twitter. I was told by a Heat official the other night that he was having a conversation with Tyler and asking him again, who do you want to be? Like, who do you emulate? I think I asked the same question of Tyler earlier, and he always says Devin Booker. And the Heat officials said aim higher. Aim for a guy who's going to defend, who has an all-around game, who is in this culture. That's basically what he told him.
That's basically what they say.
That's basically what they told him. And aim higher.
Be like, yeah, we want you to be Devin Booker on offense, but
right, but not the other stuff. Not the other stuff.
Don't get it twisted.
Right. What are we seeing? What's happening here? He's 19 years old. Tonight, 6 of 14 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3, 16 points, 5 rebounds. But we've already seen now, this is now 3 games where he's essentially had what turned out to be basically game-changing shots.
Yep.
What is this?
I mean, this is that drip that he was talking about, right? This is the real drip, not the close. The fact that he's performing and taking similar shots that he was taking and getting famous for in high school and making them on elite NBA defenses, this guy is unbelievable. He made multiple of those shots that you just alluded to, and to do it against the Sixers, to do it in the fashion that he did. I mean, look, I gotta be honest, me and Alf had a really hard time staying objective after that shot. We were like trying our hardest not to lose shit.
I'm gonna set the scene on this a little bit. Alf and Alex were not sitting with me tonight. I was my usual seat, which is like right above first level. They put us in 106, so it's sort of close to center court, but right above it. Alf and Alex often sit there as well. Tonight there was a little overflow. Like yesterday, we had plenty of seats there. Tonight was a little overflow. They didn't put you guys upstairs. So,
yeah, we were just glad to not be in the 400 level.
You were not in the 400 level. They put you basically behind the basket, up a little bit higher, but behind the basket. I actually like that view, to be honest. I mean, you can see what's happening. It's a sort of a good film view. And the two of you were there, so I did not see you to shoot you dirty looks because you were likely being unprofessional when he hit that shot. I mean, for anybody else...
It was very fitting. We sat with the fans.
Right. Well, it's appropriate, right. I mean, for anybody else, that's a bad shot, right?
Easily, 100%. Like the fact that he had the gall to take that shot, and they were down.
Right.
Like this isn't when they were tied, and he's just taking. He put his balls on the table, man. Like that was unbelievable.
He does. Well, now that you said that, I can tell this other anecdote, and we'll move on from Tyler Herro real quick. I asked before the game. People have been trying to figure out what his Twitter handle means because it's RAF_Tyler. So the assumption, because this is where people's minds go, is that it means real as.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was a fashion thing because he's big into the fashion stuff, and
right.
Raph is a very popular fashion reference in rap music.
Okay, fine, but that nobody thought it. I don't think anybody thought it was a fashion thing. Everybody thought it was real as fuck, right? Isn't that what everybody thought?
I honestly didn't have a guess besides that.
Okay, I walked up to him before the game, before he ends up making this shot, and I just walked up to him and I said, "Real as fuck." And he looks at me like I'm insane. And I'm like, what are you... And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, your Twitter handle. He goes, no. He says it means rich and famous. I came up with it when I was 6 years old. Now, we have people questioning me who say he's lying to me, that it really means rich as fuck, and that's what he meant to say. But either way, rich and famous, real as fuck, whatever it is, we apologize. We know we have kids listening. I ran into some tonight. Tyler Herro is all of that. It's all drip. All right, number 2. Let's get to this one tonight. Jimmy Butler. We're going to get into this more in a future pod. But I don't know what to make of Jimmy Butler right now because tonight he had 25, 9, and 9 and was a plus 18, which other than Meyers Leonard, who was terrific, we'll touch on him, was the best on the team. He was also 7 of 21 from the field. I don't remember him making a shot outside of 10 feet.
Yeah, I looked up and I saw that he had 29 points, and I was like, when did he score those points?
Right, well, 11 of 14 from the line again. I feel like we've seen this game before where he doesn't get a field goal until the second quarter. I looked up his shooting numbers tonight, Alex, and this is a precursor for a future pod. We're going to dive into this, but not tonight. He is shooting his lowest percentage from basically every distance beyond 10 feet this year since his rookie year, which I don't count because he hardly played. He didn't start a game. But his numbers are down, and not by a little bit. From last year, he's down about 6%. From 10 to 16 feet, he's down about 5 to 6% from 16 to 23 feet, and we know he's down from three-point range, which is beyond 23 feet. He's not shooting the ball the way he did before, and yet still doing enough, even with missing the 3 free throws. Remember, at one point in this game, I think he was 9 of 9, right? And then he went 2 of his last 5 from the line. We'll get into him more, but do you have a concern about the shooting. Are they going to be able to win games like this in the postseason if he's shooting the ball from distance, and not just distance, from mid-range, the way that he's been shooting it lately?
See, so this is something that we've talked about in the past, and it's something that I've talked about with Alf also. It's kind of, you can go both ways on this, right? Because there's room for improvement, because we think that, once Winslow is back and he's taking some of that playmaking pressure off of Jimmy, that he'll get some easier looks. Maybe he won't have to do all of that playmaking, which takes out his legs because of all the playmaking that he has to do. And I think it makes it tougher on him in the fourth quarter. I think that might have had to do with some of those missed free throws. But yeah, there's room for improvement. I think it will get better. But at the same time, what you alluded to before, it might be a problem, right? Because if you're not getting the same amount of free throws in the playoffs, which is something that they're heavily dependent on, because he's getting double-digit free throws seemingly every game now. I don't know what his average is for the season, but it feels like it, right? Especially at home. And if they're not getting the same number of free throw attempts, I think it's going to be tougher for them to, generate some points. Well, I think it has a lot to do with this matchup that he was as inefficient from the field as he was tonight. But at the same time, it's like
3 straight against Philly, he's been this inefficient.
Yep, and the thing is, all the other stuff that works for the Heat's offense, as far as the cutting and the shooting, that stuff is, cut off. Like, all of those lanes become a lot harder for the other Heat players to navigate. It's a lot of winning on the margin at this point with the Sixers. And if you're losing free throw attempts in the playoffs, it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, I mean, they lose a game as a result of his jump shooting. And there was one situation, I've said it repeatedly, I want to see him in the post more often. There's one situation tonight, he got himself in the post. The double comes, he sees Goran, he makes the pass out to Goran makes the 3. Can we get him down there more often? There was a certain point I was like, don't even operate outside of 10 feet anymore. And what stuns me about
You want Jimmy to turn into Ben Simmons?
Well, you know what? What's crazy about it is the Sixers had him last year, and they were still guarding him like he's, an efficient perimeter shooter. Like maybe because he was for them slightly more so than he has been this year. And I'm like, if they're going to guard him like that, okay. But at this point, he's so good operating, in the paint and operating in the post that I would be fine with him just doing that. But anyway, 25, 9, and 9. All right, the third thing I want to talk about tonight is Meyers Leonard, and in a different context than we have, because everybody, Meyers a great guy, Meyers a great locker room guy, Meyers sets good screens. I don't think they win this game without Meyers tonight. I actually thought, and the box score is not going to blow anybody away, 7 points and 8 rebounds in 30 minutes, and he didn't play down the stretch, but he had the second stint again against Philadelphia. We talked about it last time. Kelly Olynyk is unplayable against the Sixers. He just is. And he had the 1 6-minute stint, and Spo decided that was enough. Didn't play Chris Silva again tonight. Kept going back to Meyers Leonard. Leonard had that steal. Again, the screen setting was terrific, but he also hounded Embiid all the way out to the perimeter. I thought from top to bottom, again, it's not going to show up as a big thing, but the 7 points, the 8 rebounds, he didn't get credit for steal. He got credit for block on that play. Plus 19 on the game, though, in 30 minutes. His best game with the Miami Heat, in my opinion.
So I think something that we overlooked with this matchup is that even though it's very unfavorable for most of the players on the team in general, it's actually not at all unfavorable for Meyers Leonard. Mm-hmm. And I think it's for this reason. He can drop back on defense every single time. So where he gets exposed on defense is when he has to come up on guys who are pull-up shooters or quicker than him, which is mostly everybody, and he doesn't really have to do that versus the Sixers. When they're zoning or not, he's effective because you don't have to come up and guard Josh Richardson like he's Kemba Walker or anything like that, because the Heat guys are switching, so profusely that it's not on him, right? And when you go to the 2-3 zone, he's perfect for it. It completely mitigates all of his defensive weaknesses, and he's a very, very, very big man and can help with Embiid out there, and not in a one-on-one fashion because Embiid can bully him and get a lot of free throw calls that way, but because of the zone, Embiid is having to make decisions out there every time, almost getting doubled every time that he gets the ball on the low block. And I think it's a very, very good matchup for Meyers. Yeah,
and I think you're going to see more of him in those kind of matchups. And again, the Olynyk question, for me, there just have been very few games to me where Kelly's made the kind of impact that he needs to, and this is just not a good matchup for him. All right, number 4, Duncan Robinson tonight. The 5 fouls were kind of a fluky thing. I don't think it's because he was defending poorly. I thought a couple were ticky-tack and a couple were sort of circumstantial. 4 of 4 from 3 tonight, though. He's now shooting 52% from 3 in December. He's the best shooter in the league right now.
He's putting on a case to be the best shooter they've ever had, right? Outside of Ray Allen's huge shot in the finals, what he's done this season is like short of nobody that they've ever had before, right? Like just the volume, the ways that he's getting to these shots, how effortlessly he shoots it, and the fact that he's just blistering high, over 50% from 3 on 7-8 attempts a game. Like, this is ridiculous. He, again, untradeable. You can't trade him.
No, you can't. But I was surprised that he didn't come back in late.
Same here.
He did in the overtime, but it was brief. It was a couple possessions. But I do think if I've had, they won the game. And you know how I feel about Spoelstra, but if I had a complaint about Spoelstra for the last 11, 12 years about rotations, it's that sometimes he will fall in love with a group and never make a change. I remember one game. Was it Sean Marion years ago when Marion was the Heat? We're going back 10 years, where he mentioned he forgot Sean was on the bench. I don't think that kind of stuff happens anymore. Okay, he's a much more experienced coach. I remember that was part of the reason of having Ron Rothstein there, was to kind of remind him of these things. But tonight, we mentioned Dragic off the top. And have Goran in for that long. Now, I think what it speaks to with Goran, though, is that, again, how badly they miss Winslow. And so it's weird because they miss Winslow, and yet there were certain times tonight I don't know where Winslow would have fit. But he doesn't want Jimmy having to handle down the stretch of games, and I still don't think he trusts Kendrick to do it. Not in a game like this. Yeah. And so that means the guy he's going to trust is Goran Dragic, and he's going to trust Goran Dragic to play 35 minutes on the second night of a back-to-back. And
versus a huge team.
Versus a huge team. Goran finished over Embiid and got the foul at the end of that game right after I said they've got to get him out because he looks like he's got no legs.
And he was dribbling the hell out of the clock a couple possessions before that ridiculous shot.
Well, I think when Goran gets tired, he over-dribbles. He goes the opposite of the other things. But anyway, I thought he could have gotten Duncan Robinson back in the game tonight. He didn't. But again, Duncan makes the 4 threes along with Tyler Herro. One more Heat topic, and then we're going to actually flip it after the break. I want to touch on Philadelphia some because there is interest in Philadelphia. But the fifth thing tonight is Bam Adebayo, who had, to me, one of his least impactful games that he's had recently. The 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. I mean, we're used to bigger numbers from him by this point, but I just got to keep saying it. When Joel Embiid drops 10 feet off of him, Bam has to look at the basket. He has to. Whether he wants to take the shot or not, he's got to at least look that direction and make them respect him, because otherwise it's just like we're going to talk about the zone with Philly. Until you counter that in an effective way, they're going to keep doing it. And that I feel like we're only touching on this in the Philly games. But he's got to fix it. But they're going to see this team in the playoffs, I think.
And they're going to see this type of defense versus other teams, whether it's now in the regular season or not. We're most likely going to see that same defensive scheme in the playoffs, whether it's against the Sixers or not. The Raptors can do it because they have a big, slow center who they can just tell to put his arms up the same way the Sixers do with Embiid. The Celtics have Daniel Tice, who talked about it before, who another guy who isn't exactly fleet of foot, so it makes a lot of sense to just keep him as the vertical defensive presence. But I think with Bam, we've already seen the way to beat that defensive scheme, or at least give yourself a real chance at it, is either Bam going directly to the basket and going for one of those little floaters, or trying to just, dunk over the center. Bam taking those mid-range shots. He's gotten a little bit better at it. He's taking some of those shots now. I think he wasn't taking many of them before. But at the same time, the real way to beat it is to have guys go around Bam, and Bam do either the screen into a handoff or screen and roll. And I think that's where you get the defense moving, you get the defense having to make a decision. And for example, we saw it a couple times towards the end with Tyler, where they were sagging off of Bam. Herro comes around Bam and gets the ball, and then Herro is very good in those 2-on-2 situations in the pick and roll. And at that point, you have to choose how you're going to defend, right? And that's the way to beat it. And I think they're going to have to do more of that going forward.
Well, he did have the slam over Josh Richardson tonight, and I'm looking at his Instagram. He calls everything bounce back here, but then he has right after it. So for his brother, he dunked right over Josh.
Josh has something to say because of that 4-point play that he had.
Josh had some plays we're going to get to after the break, because I do want to touch on Philadelphia because I feel like we're going to see them again. But first, I want to tell you about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is the New Gold Club. That's right, the New Gold Club in Pompano Beach. They're open every day from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. If you're not familiar with where they are, they're hidden back a little bit, kind of in a warehouse district, but they're very close to Powerline Road and Copans in Pompano Beach. So just a little bit west of I-95, a little bit east of the Turnpike. And it's not just a gentleman's club. Ladies get in free all of the time. That's right, all of the time. Ladies get in free. They've got $5 you call it every Monday. So just show up on Monday, and for $5 you can get your glass filled all night long. That's just $5 for all night long. And of course they have what's called Sin City Sunday, which maybe Alex and I can't go to because we're not part of the service industry, but if you are, it's 20% off on Sin City Sunday. So go check out the New Gold Club that's in Pompano Beach. All right, let's touch on the Sixers, because they came off a win against the Bucks, and I have said all along that based on talent, pure talent, the highest upside team is the Philadelphia 76ers. And based on personalities, the lowest downside team among the top 6 is the Philadelphia 76ers. And Stan Van Gundy said it today, or last night actually, on NBA TV. He said, I don't trust them. He says they're the least consistent team of the top 6 in the East. I also think they have the coach in the most trouble. And let's start there.
You think Brett Brown is on the hot seat?
I think Brett Brown is on the hot seat.
Oh.
And if you look at some of the clips from tonight where he's kind of calling out Embiid a little bit, and then Embiid was actually asked about something about whether the team. He wasn't about the team coming apart, but it was kind of was everybody pulling together. And he said, "Who said that?" And he said, "Ben said it." I feel like there's this underlying tension with this team. I've never seen Josh Richardson look so stiff as he did after the game. Because they do their media availabilities like where everybody has to get together in the middle of the room and all interview at once. It's not loose, it's uncomfortable, it's stiff, it's formal. And Josh...
pretty tight in there.
It's tight, right. And Josh... we know Josh. Josh is not stiff and formal, okay?
He's just not used to being in the visitor locker room.
He's not. But it's the way that some of these sort of big, we call them, these Northeast city teams do media is very different. The press is very different. They're all over him on every loss in a different way than we are. And I mean, they're unforgiving, right? And it's always somebody's fault. I mean, and so I think that's kind of what we counter there a little bit. But
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but you thought the dribbling out of bounds stuff was received badly here.
Well, he threw the ball out of bounds today. Right? He airmailed that one at the end of the game.
That's on the scouting report.
But let's get to number 1 on the Sixers. We'll do 5 quick ones on the Sixers. I think their coach is in the most trouble of the top 6 coaches in the East. I mean, on the 6 teams. If you look at the coaches, Spo is going to be coach of the year, or should be. Brad Stevens is very safe. Nate McMillan has way overachieved with that group this year.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, Nick Nurse isn't going anywhere. He just won a championship, and they've overachieved. They beat Boston tonight, right? And who am I missing? Milwaukee. Yeah, Bud's safe. You're talking about elite coaches at the top of the Eastern Conference.
Except Stevens.
That's another argument. But Brett, he's done a pretty good job this year once you got Kyrie out of there, which I thought would be the case.
Begrudgingly, I'll agree.
All right, but Brett Brown, I think, is in real trouble. Brett Brown was there to put this thing together when they had a bunch of young players that couldn't play. They've drafted a bunch of high-end guys. Some of them have busted out. Some of them are not there anymore, including Markelle Fultz, who they may have given up on too soon. Watched him play last night. He looks pretty damn good. I wanted the Heat to get him last season for that reason. But I think this thing is going to fall apart. I'll throw this at you before we get to this game. Do you think Brett Brown even survives the season?
Yes, I was kind of surprised by that take because I could see, the seat warming up if things start to go the other way. But at the same time, right, like he did a great coaching job versus the Heat a couple years ago. Out-coached Spo, another thing I'll say begrudgingly. And then last year, did a terrific job versus the Raptors, almost beat them, lost by, a buzzer-beating shot by the guy who ends up winning Finals MVP. puts together a Jordan-esque performance. I think it's going to depend on what happens in the playoffs this year. If they go out, definitely in the first round, I think that, warms up the seat a lot more. But if they end up losing to the Bucks, I think he'll be okay. And I don't know, man. I think it's going to depend a lot more on the playoff stuff because of how long he stuck through taking those stains on his coaching record for years before they got Embiid and Simmons.
But most of those guys don't survive it, though. I mean, he has survived it, but he has a certain way about him. His style of presentation is, and I like him, but his style of presentation is very different from Spoelstra. If you notice, Eric never, I always said this, he never calls out players individually. He calls out the group, praises individually. Brett Brown you will know when you hear from Brett Brown who he has a problem with. It's very clear. Even with Embiid tonight, he didn't hide it. He's dealing with very temperamental players.
And everybody knew that he had a problem with Jimmy last year. It was coming out right from the start.
It was obvious, and I think some of it was overstated, but from the very start it becomes clear
there was a strain.
And there was a strain, and so that's an issue there. All right, let's get to number 2 tonight, which is Embiid. And this is one of the things to look at with the Heat. Joel Embiid had 35 and 11 tonight and was a plus 11 on the game. And I still feel like the Heat did about as much as they could have against him, even though he was 11 of 12 from the line. How do you handle Joel Embiid? Because this is, I don't worry about Ben Simmons. I don't worry about Tobias Harris. I like Josh. I don't worry about Josh. Al Horford was a minus 25 tonight. They had to take him off the floor for Trey Burke. It wasn't working. How do you handle Joel Embiid? And to me, Joel Embiid's biggest enemy is Joel Embiid. When Joel Embiid wants to play a certain way, he plays a certain way. He can't really be stopped. What do the Heat do with him if they see him in the playoffs?
I think they did a really good job tonight. I think over the past couple of games, they've kind of put together the framework of how to guard him, right? Because the zone, as we already talked about before, is especially in both ways, right? Because of the Heat's roster and because of the Sixers roster, it makes so much sense. You're mitigating some of those guys that have defensive weaknesses like Meyers, like Duncan, like Herro, who might not be as good as at one-on-one defense, and it makes so much sense for Embiid to be guarded in that way because he can't bully you on the block one-on-one, which he will if he gets you down the block. He's going to do it. Even if it's Bam or Embiid, he's going to be able to back you down, either get a foul call, because he loves going for foul calls, by the way. And I think you did about as good of a job as you could do if you're the Heat tonight, right? And I think going forward, if you do get the Sixers in the playoffs, you can be confident that there's something there that you can do. And I just got to shout out Alf right quick, because when we were arguing a couple of weeks ago, something that he said was that the Heat could play Horford off of the floor. And me and Gianni were going back at him on that point because we didn't think that was going to happen. And it's happened in 2 straight games now.
Yeah, no.
So that's interesting. And maybe Brett Brown should get fired for playing Trey Burke as much as he did, even though he went 5 of 9.
Well, I know, but I think he had to do it because, I mean, if you look at the minutes too, basically Trey Burke took Horford's minutes. I mean, because together they had about 50 minutes in the game. And he had to do it. I mean, the bigger issue, and Trey Burke played well, but and he was plus 13.
I think he did it because DJJ was in the game and not Meyers for so long.
He was, and I think also Burke playing was one of the reasons why I think Spo didn't put Duncan back in and kept Herro out there.
And Goran.
To stay a little bit smaller to counter that. But, look, getting back to Embiid here for a second, I just wonder as Pat looks at it, does he say, okay, Joel had 35 and 11 tonight. If he does that against us in the playoffs, we can live with it. Or do I need to go get myself another big? Because that's, I think, one of the things that you've got to look at is, can you live with it? If Joel has this kind of game, can you live with it? All right, let's get to number 3, and that's Ben Simmons. I just don't see it, man. I mean, I know he has a skill set. I thought he did a really good job hounding Jimmy at times tonight. Brett Brown was asked before the game about the stat that actually the Sixers are 6 points better defensively when Ben's off the floor, and Brett Brown threw that stat out as a stupid stat, and I think it is a stupid stat. I think Ben Simmons can defend, but this told me everything I needed to know about whether Ben Simmons is an elite player. At the end of that game, they put the ball in Josh Richardson and Trey Burke's hands. Not in Ben Simmons' hands. Not in their All-Stars' hands. Not in the number 1 overall pick's hands. They put it in Trey Burke and Josh Richardson. you and I both love Josh Richardson. The ball should not be in Josh Richardson's hands at the end of games.
We learned that the hard way.
Okay? And,
multiple times.
And he made plays down the stretch tonight, too, okay? And he ended up with 17. He shot 50% from the floor. He made 3 threes, okay? And, that crazy free throw play we don't even need to get into. But if you're trusting Trey Burke and Josh Richardson, you do not have an elite point guard. You don't. And I just wonder for that team long term. I know it's not the Heat's problem, but that team long term, if this Simmons Embiid thing is going to work, because we're 3 seasons into it now, and Ben still can't shoot.
And that's exactly what I think it's about, right? I think it has more to do with the Simmons and Embiid fit than it does on Simmons' own merit, because, like you said, Simmons has a skill set where he manages to be a very effective player. Besides the fact that he's a monster athlete and will just destroy you in transition. He still shot 6 of 12, still got 7 rebounds, 11 assists.
It was a minus 12.
Yeah, but I think again that has to do with the fact that the Heat zoned and Simmons cannot do anything with that zone.
No.
Like that's another thing is like you have to go to the shooters to beat the zone, and I think that's another reason that Brown went to these other guys who maybe you wouldn't have expected, but. Again, this is something that I wanted to also say when we were talking about Brett Brown being on the hot seat. I think the Sixers team is built for the playoffs, and I had to disagree with you on the part of them having the lowest downside, even though I get the point you're trying to say, because I think just having that top 3 defense and that type of size is going to have you in pretty much every game, and they've got weapons all across the floor. Even though it's not a great fit, I think they're built for the playoffs, and they're about as good of a roster as you can have to beat the Bucks. But at the same time, we don't know if the Simmons and Embiid thing works. We still haven't seen it work to the highest levels, and I'm still very unsure about that.
They actually made their big run 2 years ago when one of them was out, and that's so again that's what I want. Look, and the conversation I had with Tim Bontemps when he was on the pod with me from ESPN was he's saying that in the playoffs, and I understand this point, that some of the Heat's advantages would get mitigated, the Heat's depth advantage would get mitigated, because that is a trash bench that the Sixers have.
Well, not tonight. James Ennis and Trey Burke lighting up the Heat.
Well, that's right, and they'll add 2 buyout guys even if they don't add one of the 55 former Sixers that are out there.
I think they got to be looking at trade targets, because going after these one-dimensional shooters like a Wayne Ellington, Wayne Ellington will be cool for them, obviously, for the regular season, but in the playoffs, they're going to need 2-way guys who can fit into the lineups.
How do you make a trade target? How do you find a trade target with what they have to offer? Because you can't give up any. I mean, Horford is not attractive to anybody. So what is?
I think that the pathway for them isn't necessarily a 3-and-D player, because those are hard to come across. I think they're going to need somebody who can shoot and also do some stuff with the ball. Not a primary ball handler, but I think like if they could nab like Evan Fournier from the Magic, who have been struggling, I think that would be a great fit. Like he's very, very good. You can play him with Embiid and Simmons, and I think a lot of the times like they're playing. When they have Simmons out there and Horford at the 5 and Embiid off the floor, like they got shooters in between. They got Korkmaz out there. I think they're only missing a couple of guys, but at the same time, we still need to see Embiid and Simmons in the fourth quarter, in the playoffs, and how it works. Whether you've got shooters around them or not, I still very doubtful. I think the defense is the cushion, but the offense is very much a question.
The offense is going to be a mess. I don't like until Ben can learn to shoot. I don't see it, man.
He needs to take like floaters or something, right? Like take some of those BAM shots.
I just don't see it. They put the ball in Josh Richardson's hands, and to me that says everything you need to say. And then the fourth thing here, this was another big issue before the season. You didn't have Jimmy, who was going to take the last shot for you. Tonight it was Tobias Harris in the corner. He was 4 of 15 from the field. Tobias is the guy they identified before the year. I thought the Heat did a masterful job against Tobias today. I thought every time that he came off any kind of screen or anything like that, they were bodied up into him.
Except that last possession.
The last possession, he got clean. Yes, he got absolutely clean. But I thought they did generally a very nice job against him. And I'm going to keep coming back to this. Tobias Harris, to me, is Jamal Mashburn. He's Eddie Jones. He's your third guy that I don't know if I necessarily trust in the big time situations, and they just gave him a max, and that's why I'm going to come back to this. We talk about, and this will be our number 5, and we'll close here, and then we'll do an ode to Josh at the end. But I'm going to throw this question at you: which of these two teams? Because I don't think the Sixers can make a meaningful trade with this roster, not right now. Which of these two teams could use Drew Holiday more?
The Sixers or the Heat? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. Oh, man, you're getting spicy tonight. So what is that? Is that implying that you would maybe throw Simmons into a trade?
Which of these teams could use Drew Holiday's skill set more? To me, if you replace Simmons with Drew Holiday on the Sixers, you're better. And he's been there before.
I'm not sure, man. I'm really not sure because, yes, the Simmons and the only reason I would even give like a real thought to this, not that I think Simmons is way better than Jrue Holiday. I think they're both around top 40 players, maybe in the same tier. But the only reason I think you may have a point is because of the Simmons and Embiid fit, right? It's so bad that Jrue is a better shooter. You know, it makes sense. But I don't think Jrue is that point guard guy who can do all of the ball handling. I think he's best used as a combo guard, right? Who can do a lot of ball handling, which is why I think he would be a better fit on the Heat, where him and Jimmy could kind of take turns doing the playmaking. They could each give each other a break. Whereas with the Sixers, all of the playmaking would fall on him because they don't have any other real playmakers.
Right. I don't know, man. I think you replace Simmons. I know people wouldn't agree with me. I think you replace Simmons with Jrue, and
it's not a bad idea.
This thing looks different.
It's not a bad idea because you could probably get like other stuff from the Pelicans because you're trading away the guy who's like 7 years younger.
The only thing about it is David Griffin had to deal with Clutch for how many years in Cleveland. I don't know that you want to deal with him again necessarily, but Simmons and Zion, would that work?
Oh man, that would be. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. That would be insane to watch in transition. That would be like. Oh man. Oh, that just got rough. That just got rough.
Well, I mean,
he's just gonna go have the same problem somewhere else.
Maybe. I don't know what the ass is. All right, final thing. Ode to Josh tonight. This was to me the complete Josh Richardson experience. He competed. First, I was glad to see the crowd give him a nice ovation. He deserved it. He competed. He made a lot of shots. He defended. You know, he airmailed a pass out of bounds towards the end of the game. He missed a free throw that he needed to make.
Playing the hits.
and then the second one, he kind of hit the rim. Not sure if he hit the rim. Ben Simmons lane violation didn't matter because for some reason the NBA doesn't allow you to review it. I look at that trade again, and I wish they didn't have to give him up. It's kind of a shame because if you hadn't given those contracts to Waiters and JJ, then
be a part of this.
He would be a part of this. Right, because they wouldn't have had to give up anything to bring in Jimmy Butler. But again, looking at it right now, and I love Josh. Josh played 41 minutes tonight. Okay, you make the trade that the Heat made. You know, every day and 6 times on Sunday or whatever it is they call it, and you just say to Josh, there may be money for you in 2 years. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't look extremely happy over there. If they don't do some winning in the playoffs, maybe that's they gave him a tour tonight of where exactly they left the key under the mat.
That's right. the key's
here. It's right here.
It's right here. Just don't throw it out of bounds. All right. Thanks for joining us. We're gonna do another big episode. I love Josh. You know that. It's just.
We'll welcome him back with open arms in a couple years.
That's right. Backing up Herro. Right?
If Giannis doesn't come, of course.
Right. Another of our great sponsors, Seltzer Mayberg Law Firm. Check them out at onecalllegal.com. That's spelled out ONE, calllegal.com. They've got someone there 24 hours a day to handle every kind of case, immigration. Also, of course, personal injury, traffic tickets. They do a great job with that. Support our sponsors. That's what keeps us in business, all right? And they do a terrific job. They're right there in North Miami, but like I said, they handle cases from all over the state. 5reasonsports.com, the place to go for all of your free Heat content. I'll be starting my column up next week, which is actually sponsored now by Cervantes Clothiers, so I may look better also. I don't know how that affects my column writing, but we'll see. But I'm going to have a column up.
I mean, come on, we just saw it tonight. Herro's as confident as he is because he always looks good and feels good.
Right, that's right. Yeah, because I'm never going to be able to look like real as fuck Tyler Herro. Anyway, have a great night.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.